For what purpose does the gentleman from Michigan seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend the rules and pass H.R. 3399, the SULOX Security and Economic Reporting Act of 2023.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 104, H.R. 3399, a bill to study the security of the SULOX and effects on the supply chain resulting from malfunction or failure of the SULOX and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. James, and the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Auchincloss, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and insert extraneous material into the record on H.R. 3399.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First and foremost, I'm grateful for the bipartisan support of my colleagues in Michigan, General Bergman, along with Reps. Scholten and Kildee, for co-sponsoring this very important legislation. H.R. 3399, the SULOX Security and Economic Report Act of 2023, is proof that fortifying our national security and strengthening our economy transcends partisan politics. The SULOX are a feat of human ingenuity and a point of pride for all Michiganders. The Army Corps of Engineers has nicknamed the SULOX the linchpin of the Great Lakes, and for good reason. The locks connect both Lake Superior and Lake Huron. They play a vital role in transporting goods and resources, not just throughout the Great Lakes, but all around the world. An average of 7,000 vessels pass through the locks every single year, and with it, over 90% of the world's iron ore. As the hub of America's vehicle industry and one of the most critical states for our military industry, Michigan relies on the locks to get necessary materials in and out of the state. But the SULOX aren't just important for my home state. They're also critical for yours and for our national security. As stated above, over 90% of the world's iron ore flows through the SULOX. Michigan is home to the 3rd largest land border in the country. And as member of the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee and the congressman representing Michigan's 10th Congressional District, America's #1 manufacturing district, it is my job to safeguard our national defense and vital commerce by finding ways to secure our essential infrastructure. An unexpected closure of the SULOX would threaten both. In 2015, the Department of Homeland Security found that a 6-month shutdown would be disastrous. Recession, closed factories, shuttered mines, a pause in U.S. auto and appliance production for most of a year. Around 11 million jobs could be lost nationwide. That's the entirety of Michigan's population. Think of that. Our economy would be critically harmed and might never recover. A 2018 study concluded that an unexpected outage in the 1,200-foot-long pole lock would create a bottleneck that would disrupt the supply chain for steel production and wreak havoc in Michigan manufacturing, particularly in the automotive industry. That's why I introduced the SULOX Security and Economic Reporting Act of 2023, and this is why we must, together, pass this legislation. This is a common sense measure that simply asks the Secretaries of Transportation and Defense, along with the Commandant of the Coast Guard, to study potential security risks of the SULOX. It would examine the economic consequences in the event of operational failure. And finally, it asks these departments to provide recommendations as well as the cost of these recommendations to Congress. This legislation, again, is a common sense step toward protecting the infrastructure that keeps this country driving. Failing to move forward on this bill doesn't just jeopardize America's national security. It leaves our country vulnerable to an economic crisis that is unacceptable. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting H.R. 3399, the SULOX Security and Economic Reporting Act of 2023, and I reserve the balance of my time.